The Oklahoma Sooners have got to feel good about where they are going into the 2021 season. This was a team that started the season last year a little bit disappointed, but ended up finishing the year very, very well, and that's very important. But today I wanted to talk about a more in-depth look. I wanted to go through some of the games that OU will be playing and talk about some of the games on the schedule that will be key for the Sooners in their quest to get to the college football playoffs and ultimately compete for a national championship. But before we dive into this, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. So hop down to the comments and let me know what games do you think are going to be the toughest for the Sooners, and let me know why. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification because I do constant college football content, player reviews, film analysis, talk style videos like this, and I'm on my push to 5,000 subscribers. I've got some really special things coming on the channel, and I would love to have you along for the journey, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and comment down below because that really does go a long ways in helping content creators like myself get picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's talk about Oklahoma. And look, we'll start with the back end of the schedule first because it's the team in closest proximity to the Sooners, as backwards as this sounds, and that's with Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a team that is going to be talented next year. The running back room looks to be very talented, even though they lose Hubbard. The receiving room has a few question marks, but for the most part, it's Oklahoma State. We kind of think that they are going to have some talented receivers, but the question is, are they a real threat to Oklahoma? And my answer is going to be no, and there's a few reasons why. One, the defensive front for Oklahoma State was not very good last year, giving up 160 yards per game rush, and Oklahoma is going to have, in my estimation, one of the best running attacks in all of college football next year because of the incredibly talented running back room that they have. That thing is stacked, and it's not going anywhere. It's only going to keep getting better. Aside from that, Oklahoma State has to replace a very productive cornerback, and given the way Lincoln Riley likes to attack defenses, when your front isn't good enough to stop OU's run and you have to replace a cornerback, and look, Oklahoma State does have a lot of sure depth at defensive back. They have a few safeties that they feel very comfortable in, and so because of that, that transition into getting a new guy on the field isn't going to be a make or break, but at the same time, you're going up against OU, and you're going up against Lincoln Riley and Spencer Rattler, who are going to be attacking the new guy on the field, and I just don't think that Oklahoma State, at the end of the day, even though this is a bit like Texas, and it's a rivalry game, and that goes either ways, I just don't see them being able to stop Oklahoma this year. Oklahoma State should be improved, but I don't see it happening. Now, looking through some other games on the schedule, I actually think that the Big 12 as a whole is going to be better this year. Look, Kansas will still be a mess, but teams like Baylor, and I don't think that Baylor is going to be pushing OU, but I think that they're going to be better. And OU plays Kansas State, and I know what you're thinking. You're rolling your eyes at the mention of Kansas State because OU should steamroll them this year. However, OU has to go play at Kansas State, and OU fans, as an Alabama fan, I know what it's like to have a team that just has your number, and I'm not saying that Kansas State is going to beat Oklahoma next year. Oklahoma I have as a team that's going to steamroll them, but they're going to feel confident. They're going to feel some type of way, and they're going to feel like they can take y'all, and it's up to Oklahoma to just shut them down, and what a better way to do it, right? Just go ahead and shut the door on that. So now to talk about the big games, the games that I think most people are thinking about when we're talking and thinking about Oklahoma football coming up this season. The Texas Longhorns, TCU, and Iowa State. And sure, you play Nebraska, but this isn't the Nebraska of the Big 12 and of the Nebraska of the 90s. This is a Nebraska that's a shell of its former self, and even though they've had coaching overhaul, it hasn't done anything, and the Huskers are coming off of a really poor season last year, and I don't know how it's going to get much better, especially when you're opening the season fairly early on against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to steamroll Nebraska. I'm not too worried about that. But let's start it off with TCU. And TCU is a team that any college football fan knows of Gary Patterson. You know what his defense is, and he is a true revolutionary. That's a word that doesn't get used a lot, shouldn't get used a lot, and should only be used when it's aptly appropriate. And Gary Patterson is a defensive revolutionary. That's just what it is. A phenomenal defense is what TCU runs, and TCU is a team that I think is going to be much improved from last year, but there are some problems. First and foremost, you lose the best safety in the country. And OU, just like I said against Oklahoma State, is going to be gunning at that position. And look, at the end of the day, it's Gary Patterson. We know what he does with his safeties. Some of the best safety play in college football occurs at TCU, whether people really want to admit it or not, because that defense is a very difficult defense to master, a very technically good defense. And because of that, Gary Patterson and TCU, they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of upside. I just don't see it coming together against OU. And the thing is we know the college football world holds Gary Patterson in high regard for his defensive acumen. But Spencer Rattler looks to try and win the Heisman this year, and that's a game that he can put down as a Heisman caliber game, just coming in there and slaughtering that TCU defense. And look, we understand the TCU defense is going to have some holes to answer, some holes to fill, but regardless, this is a Gary Patterson coached defense. They should be good, but at the end of the day, I just don't see them being able to beat Oklahoma. Now we need to talk about the last two games and probably the two biggest games for Oklahoma. I don't think there's a probably to it. The two biggest games for Oklahoma, because I suspect that they might be doubling up on one of these teams, and that's Texas and Iowa State. If everything goes to plan, they will be playing one of those teams twice, once in the regular season, once in the Big 12 championship. And we'll kick it off with Iowa State, the team they just played in the Big 12 championship and who got them in the regular season. And look, this is an Iowa State team that returns everything. The head coach, they return the quarterback, they return Mike Rose, the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They return their running back, who was the Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, and I don't expect him to repeat. I think Rattler will probably win that, but Bijan Robinson will have something to say about that as well. But you get my point. This is an Iowa State team that is well coached, very talented, very experienced, and they know what it takes to beat OU because they've done it. However, OU that they played and beat early in the season is not the same OU that they played in the Big 12 championship. The defense had progressed. Spencer Rattler, whether we admit it or not, was not the same guy week one as he was at the end of the year. I understand he was putting up phenomenal stats all year round, and all you could do is look at him and see that, yeah, this guy is incredibly talented, but he was playing much smarter football at the end of the year, and that smarter football is something that if he can carry over and mix that with his unlimited talent, oh man, the college football world is in trouble. And what a better way to do that than Iowa State? Remember what I just said about TCU, that if Rattler is looking to win a Heisman and he wants to capitalize on Heisman moments, TCU and Gary Patterson is a hell of a way to do it, because people know that TCU and Gary Patterson is a defensive regime, right? That's what they do. Iowa State and Matt Campbell have a lot of talent, and if Rattler and them can go in there and slay that beast, my goodness me. And what's going to help Rattler and them? First and foremost, Alex Grinch's defense progressing, because we know Brock Purdy is a guy who some people thought may be a first-round quarterback. I was a little bit hesitant, and I think he really struggled last year. There's some talk about him maybe going to New York, and he's got to do something different, because it just did not come together last year for him. And I expect him to be much better this year, because he's going to be looking to kind of rise on the draft board again, because this is his opportunity. Then you have Breece Hall, and you got to stop it. But Alex Grinch's defense has been progressing. It's a defense that now may be having a much more assuredness in itself, that they get a full offseason to kind of gel. There are some replacements that you need to have and figure out upon this defense, but for the most part, you keep a lot of it together, and the areas where you need to replace, you have to feel good about the talent coming in behind it. And finally, the Texas Longhorns, the antithesis to Oklahoma football, their biggest rival. And this is a game where on any given year, it's a coin flip. Let's be honest. When these rivalry games happen, OU can be the better team and still lose that day, because that's just how much that game means. All conventional wisdom goes out the window on those games. Except today, we're going to try and bring a little bit conventional wisdom to it, because that's how we have to talk about this. We know what this game is, so we have to put an asterisk by this game. But on the surface level, the reason I'm so excited for this game is this is going to be a massive test for Grinch. Look, OU is exponentially more talented than Texas. Exponentially, I use that loosely because the Texas Longhorns are a very talented team, but at the end of the day, they have continuity at coaching, which Texas doesn't have. Now, Texas upgraded the coaching staff, but they don't have that same continuity. It's going to be a massive test for Alex Grinch to scheme against Steve Sarkisian. And if y'all haven't seen the Steve Sarkisian video I did, it was just a very, very light dive into his play calling in the national championship. And I know there's this kind of idea that his play calling didn't matter, and that's not true. Steve Sarkisian is a phenomenal play caller. I hope that he'll be a good head coach, but I can tell you this without a doubt. He is a phenomenal play caller. And the scheme battle that he and Grinch are going to go head-to-head with is going to be awesome. And on the flip side, you have Coach K coming down from Washington to man this Texas Longhorns defense, and he's going to be looking to make a big splash by bringing a similar sort of philosophy to Gary Patterson, except he changed something within his nickel defense that makes it a little bit more unique. That type of defensive scheme against Lincoln Riley's brilliant offensive scheme, that's going to be an incredible game to watch. As much as we always look forward to this game, I think that this game this year is going to have a little something extra to it. Two brilliant offensive minds coming together to go at it. Oklahoma, Texas, Sark, Riley, brilliant offensive minds, continuity at Oklahoma, national championship aspirations at Oklahoma, Heisman finalist and winner aspirations in Spencer Rattler, and what a better way to get it done than beating the Texas Longhorns. And once again, at the end of the day, I think that the biggest difference in this game and the biggest way you win it isn't actually the offense, it's through the defense, because sure, your offense is going to be potent and is going to score, but if you can stop them from scoring, you're going to win that game, and I really think that Grinch in the continuity is going to figure some things out. This is an Oklahoma team that is going to be very hard to beat this year. They have all the talent to run the table, but I do think that the Big 12 as a whole is going to get better. And sure, Texas Tech has a new quarterback, but I don't think that they're going to be able to test Oklahoma and they go and play in Norman. West Virginia, a team that I think is going to be much better, but they were winless on the road last year and they go play in Norman. So I think Norman benefits from a few different things. One, schedule. They have a very favorable schedule, even though I do believe that the Big 12 will be getting better this year, and I think that the Big 12 is really rapidly coming along. Two, talent. The talent at Oklahoma rivals most other blue blood institutions in the nation that we typically put and vaunt to the playoff level. And three, continuity. Continuity at coaching, continuity at the talent. Just a very, very big thing for the Oklahoma Sooners to have. But I cannot wait to hear what y'all are thinking. What do you expect from the Sooners this year, and what game do you think is going to be the biggest test for the Oklahoma Sooners? That's it. See ya.